which let's get into that now. We'll start with those Mets as they face off against the Brewers. This is an interesting series for a lot of reasons. Number one, the sixth seed in the NL in the previous years has a little bit of history. The problem for the Mets is that they have not been good against the Brewers this year, but the Brewers are not good in the postseason. So, Will, what are your thoughts about this series?
The fact that they are just coming off of a series in Milwaukee is what's crazy too, because they ended the season against the Brewers, lost 2 of 3, then played the doubleheader, and now they're going back to Milwaukee. The Mets also got swept in the Brewers early in the season, so there is something about this Brewers team that can keep the Mets in bay. But the Mets, I think, have slightly better offensive numbers on the road, and as you said, the Brewers are a little shaky at home in the postseason, it seems like, in recent years. So the Mets offense did enough today in game one for me to believe that they could potentially take off and use that as kind of some momentum to get them through the first round, since they only need to win 2 games. But I'm also very big on this Brewers team because they are balanced. And I think that having a better offensive team than they've had in recent years, surprisingly, could be enough to help them overcome any issues they've had in the previous years.
And the Mets and Brewers have kind of had a weird series against each other this year because they played each other for the first series of the year. If you remember the Rhys Hoskins situation with Jeff McNeil, and they played them for the last series of the year. And I think it's like comparing two different teams with in that time span. I mean, a lot has changed. Like I said, the Mets haven't fared too well against them. I like a lot of what the Mets bring to the table. But John, I'll ask you this. I mean, Milwaukee kind of has a history of not performing in the playoffs. Does that factor in? I mean, because you look at this team on paper, it is so balanced coming into the year where we're like, oh, they lost Corbin Burns. It's going to be tough. But they have balance. So I believe they are going to be hard to beat.
I 100% think they're going to be hard to beat. I mean, the Brewers have been tough all year. They've been one of the best teams this year. So you could definitely make that. If I remember correctly, they were the first team to clinch a playoff spot, right?
So I don't. I
They
mean,
may have
yeah,
been the first
because of their
National League team
division.
to clinch a division.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Comedy Central later.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is, yeah. I mean, the Brewers. I don't think their history can really be factored into this. I don't think that it should be. This team is certainly different than other past teams. They've been proving people wrong all season, just simply because of the fact that, I mean, hell, we all wrote them off. I wrote them off in March. I picked the Cubs to win the division. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously. It we thought that your division, Tyler, was going to be one of the worst in baseball, if not in baseball history. Boy, were we wrong. The Brewers definitely, definitely. I'm going with them. I don't have faith in the Mets to even make this competitive. First of all, second of all, I also think that we want to talk about how they put up 8 in the first game today. They also put up a goose egg in the second. So, you know, I don't
Mm,
know if maybe
mm.
they got tired or
Well, they
what,
benched a lot of
but
people.
When you put a
Yeah.
team out there and you've just clinched, it's a little different. But
Which,
I mean, yeah.
sorry, I was just thinking somebody
Uh,
had, I think it was Passon had mentioned like there's a chance that both teams will be celebrating with champagne after the game today. Like, has that ever
yeah,
happened?
I
Like,
thought
it's kind of
about that.
weird.
That's it's probably happened. There's probably been an instance where a team won a game and then the losing team saw another team lose and then that clinched a playoff
Yeah.
spot. But I don't know if in the doubleheader sense like this.
Yeah. Um,
it was probably definitely easy to decide who the champagne went to.
Yeah, we got
I,
two
I've,
hangover games tomorrow.
yeah,
Well, that's
and
also another thing we got to factor in here. These teams just came off a doubleheader and then have to travel.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's a
and
huge
Atlanta.
factor.
I mean, Atlanta
Atlanta
has to
has to
go.
go across the
Yeah,
country.
right.
At
I
least, at least the Mets have to just go through one time zone. I think. Am I
yeah,
correct in saying
To a
that?
team that owns them.
yeah, one time
I
zone.
mean,
Yeah.
yes, but I'm trying to make it a silver lining here.
No,
The
they
one
made the
I will
playoffs.
say, the one silver lining for the Mets is that they will have their three guys if they need them. Their three starting pitchers that they've been relying on all year with Severino, Minaya, and why do I want to say Quintero?
You're
Jose
gonna say
Quintana.
Quintana or Peterson? What about Peterson
Yeah,
though? He's got an ERA just barely above 3.
Peterson's been good. He last pitched the last game of the Milwaukee series, though. He'll probably not be available. But you have Minaya who will pitch. Quintana pitched Saturday, so would
Probably
he be able to?
Severino then game 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would he be able? I
You'd
mean, he's
want to
also
split up the lefties anyway, usually. So
yeah, and also, I mean, some pitchers can go on short rest, and nothing against Quintana, but he is up, a little bit older. I don't know if he'd be able to. So that they have that going for them, which they'll have their pitchers, which is big because I mean we're talking about the Braves potentially not having Sale, so I give them that, but you kind of look at these teams side by side. It's really like, Will, is there a facet of the game where you give the edge to the Mets in the series against the Brewers?
maybe clutch hitting. That's about the only thing I can really say. The Mets seem to definitely be a team that when someone's hitting well, it's uh contagious, and then everyone seems to follow suit. They're also maybe a little bit more of a home run ball team, at least at this point, than the Brewers, even though I know the Brewers have Hoskins and Contreras and Adames. Um, the Mets are gonna if the Mets win the series, it's by the long ball. But I think kind of what John was alluding to a bit with the doubleheader that we saw today, and some of what was the Mets have played in the last week. I think the Brewers will take this series, and a big reason is regardless of whether or not the Mets can pounce a little bit on the offense, I like the Brewers bullpen a lot. And so I think today was an example of the Mets narrative of sometimes good pitching shuts them down, but once they find that weak spot, they can attack. And I just think that the Brewers offense is gritty enough to just constantly add a little bit of pressure, get 4 to 6 runs across, and their pitching is strong enough, especially in the bullpen, that they can keep the Mets at bay to 3 or under runs.
And what you said about the long ball, I mean, this has kind of been the narrative with the Mets all season too. It's they've been able to hit home runs and they've been able to limit the amount they're giving up. So if they are doing that in the series, they have a chance. But as you said, the clutch hitting that was on display today with, I mean, Lindor comes up, and I know some people are kind of getting on him because he was in the MVP conversation, which he probably shouldn't have been when you compared him to Otani. But dude, Lindor has carried that team at points, and again today it was so clutch
As
in
he
that
should.
victory. I mean, Lindor's been really good for them this year, and it's nice to see because he's a really fun player to watch, and what he did today again, beating the Braves was big. John, any last thoughts to add on this series?
I'm going Brewers in 3.
Brewers in 3. Okay. Um, I'll save my predictions for later when we do our brackets.